from the Chartreuse in the very center of Smith Haut Lafitte. It's wonderful to,
we call it the QG.
The headquarters.
The headquarters.
Love it. Very, very good. And it's great to see so many of you with us joining today. We knew this would be a popular session, and of course it was sold out. We are waiting for a few more people to join, or at least a few more people are certainly set to join. Just a quick hands up if we have any first timers to Honest Grapes wine therapy sessions this evening. Could just see a quick show of hands, please. Very few indeed. Gosh, excellent. Well, I mean, I'm not excellent. We always love to meet new people. However, it's always fantastic to welcome people back. So you all know the score and the routine. We will be recording this session starting very, very shortly for posterity and for those who took the wine kits but couldn't join, or who would like to hear Florence's and Ludovic's words of wisdom later. So if you have any problems with potentially having your face as a very small little notch on the recording, then now's the time to turn the camera off. And we will start recording now. Thank you, Nathan or Charlie, who is bringing that to fruition. Great. Good. So, well, I mean, what a fantastic tasting we have for you this evening. Obviously, or perhaps not obviously, but obviously to us, we are moving rapidly into Bordeaux territory as we gear up for what we hope will be a very successful 2020 En Primeur campaign, starting, one imagines, in May. And I don't envisage it being a long campaign like last year. I think it's in everyone's interest for a speedy and successful campaign. And this is the first in a short series of tastings that we are doing with a small selection of our very, very favorite producers from Bordeaux. And we're absolutely delighted to have Florence Cathiard and Ludovic as well joining us from Smith Haut Lafitte to take us through a truly fabulous array of the Chateau's wines, both red and white. I think because we have such knowledge to present this evening, I will keep my introductory notes very, very brief, apart from to say that Smith Haut Lafitte has long been a favorite chateau of mine. I can't think of an estate which has been quite so consistent in the quality of both its reds and its white wines. There just isn't another chateau in Bordeaux, or frankly anywhere in the world, that has been able to do that. The fascinating thing about the wines is that they're very much of themselves. They have a real sense of place, a real sense of terroir, something which you don't necessarily always associate with Bordeaux. And I'm sure it will come up in this evening's conversation that what is, if not unique, but quite unusual for the chateau is that it is one large vineyard that makes up Smith Haut Lafitte. It's split into various blocks, I think 140 different plots at some point I heard, all of which are sort of treated separately, but it is one specific terroir, with really the epicenter being on the plateau of Lafitte. And this is where some of the most exciting vineyards are in the whole of Bordeaux. The history of the chateau, it is one of the older chateaus in Bordeaux, right back to the 1300s when the first vines were planted. And then in 1720, George Smith took on the running of the estate and hence added the Smith section to the Lafitte part of the name. But I think it wouldn't be unfair to say that we wouldn't really care about Smith Haut Lafitte were it not for the Cathiard family coming on board in 1990 and really revolutionizing or recognizing the potential, but taking it to the level which we now clearly understand and enjoy. They've certainly rung in the changes in terms of the change to organic viticulture, in terms of the building of their own cooperage on the estate. So about 70 or 80% of the barrels are now made here. You know, in terms of micromanagement, I think the chateau is second to none in ensuring that every last detail is allowing the wines to maintain a standard which is rarely paralleled in Bordeaux. So a great treat, a great gush from me. As ever, please do ask questions, make comments, use the chat as much as you can this evening. I'm sure you'll have lots and lots of questions and comments this evening. Without further ado, I'm not sure, Ludovic or Florence, who wants to introduce the chateau a bit more and our first wine. I leave it entirely up to you, but thank you once again for joining us, and over to you both.
Just before that, pardon Ludovic and Florence, you'll notice that you've got your tasting mats in front of you for those that are pre-pouring. The numbers on the vials do match the tasting mat, okay? But the order we're going to be tasting them in has just been slightly changed. So that's just to avoid confusion on that. All right, allez-y Ludovic, merci.
Thank you very much, Tom. Thank you, Charlie, for this great presentation. We can't complain about so sweet words about Smith Haut Lafitte. Yes. Thanks so much. And that's true that Florence and Daniel has made a very revolution and a different profile of wine of what has been done before. So in fact, Smith Haut Lafitte has two lives, before 90 and after 90.
We try harder every day, but we have a great team.
Well, it's a team, it's a combination of everything to make a great wine. And so the first white wine that we'd like to introduce to you tonight is a selection of our youngest vines, Petit Haut Lafitte. In fact, we selected two vintages on our white with two different profiles, the 17 from the Grand Vin and the 18 from the young vines, giving you an idea of what the terroir can produce with two different, thank you, Florence, with two different profile of weather. So 18 is more on the it's a sunny year, in fact. So it gives an approach of more white fruit and white flowers in the wines, where 17, which was considered as a fresh vintage, brings different character to the Grand Vin. So Petit Haut Lafitte is a blend of Sauvignon 80% and Semillon 20%. The white plot of Smith Haut Lafitte is a very tiny vineyard located behind our hotel in one single plot, 10 hectares, mainly with Sauvignon. This plot is a selection, in fact, of 45. We cut into 45 parts this vineyard because some parts on the top of the hill, in the middle of the hill, and down the hill are different. A lot of gravel, a little bit of clay and sandy soil, but a lot of gravel, a gravel that we name here Gunst gravel, a very old stones, who gives a lot of flintstones notes in our wines. We did, sorry.
No, Ludovic, please continue.
The fermentation, we only do alcoholic fermentation on our whites. So it's a direct access from the vines to the barrels. In fact, we did a little press, horizontal neutral press. When we say neutral press, that means that there is no oxygen. So in fact, we preserve the full integrity of the fruit, the full integrity and freshness of the juice. There is no oxidation starting inside the juice, which could be happen when you have crushed grapes. We preserve the full integrity of the grapes. We harvest them in a very small crowds, early in the morning, at the fresh times. We only work with the fresh, cold grapes in order to preserve, again, the aromas and the concentration of the grapes. We did then a few press, very small, very light, and the first juice that we get, we remove them directly in a very dedicated tank. The harvest is made by hand. That's the first grape that we harvest at the property, because as the young vines, we are a group of 20 people. And we are like a tilt drop walker inside this white plot, because if we follow the ripeness of the grapes, and we did what we call the yellow harvest. So we asked to the pickers to harvest only the grapes who are yellow and not the green one. So it's what we call tri doré, yellow grapes sorting pick. And then we don't do any malolactic fermentation. We only do alcoholic fermentation inside the barrels. And we did it as a Burgundy way. We keep the lees, the finest lees, and we remove them as less as we can. We preserve the freshness. We don't want to gain too much body in removing the lees. And we like the Sauvignon. We like the Sauvignon with the varieties of the Sauvignon, and not the green one, the what we call the pipicha profile. We like the pure taste, the pure ripeness of the Sauvignon wine.
But you don't feel so much the Sauvignon in the first wine, Smith Haut Lafitte, because it's a paradoxical place, our 11 hectares. It's on a north slope on a precocious soil, terroir, with a slow ripening. So that gives, with all vines, and that gives the special touch of our Sauvignon. And our whites, we think they are excellent sooner, but better later. And either you like them or you don't, but it's for life, beware. And now you have to test the Smith Haut Lafitte 2017, which I especially like, because it has this energy, it's tense, and at the same time it's soft and long and lasts forever in the mouth, and give you this strong aftertaste of salinity and also minerality. And that's above, of course, the first aromas. The first flavor is grapefruit. Then you have a second layer of aromas. My husband sees white peaches. I see white flower. You decide. But definitely there are a second layer of aromas. And then with Smith Haut Lafitte, you have this length, no hollow in the middle, and salinity, and a little flinty minerality in the end. And that's our very special Sauvignon. We are now invited in all the world big contest of Sauvignon. And it's funny because in the red, we know we have great competitors now, because we are now invited as well. But in white, it's like I said, if you like, you are aficionados for life. And so you have to try and taste, and it's very pure, and you don't get headaches, that's for sure, because it's organic.
I think one thing which I always find very interesting and also entertaining, introducing your white wines to people for the first time, is the number of people who say to me they don't particularly like Sauvignon Blanc as a grape. You know,
Yes.
it's not the grape they naturally gravitate towards. And then you tell them, well, you know, you're drinking 90% Sauvignon Blanc in this wine, and they suddenly, you can see the pennies drop, and they realize that maybe they need to revisit their, you know, their opinions on the grape. Why do you think that the terroir of Smith Haut Lafitte, particularly for the Grand Vin, for the white, why does it transcend the variety? What is it that you do, or is there to be brought out by you, that makes it more than just a Sauvignon Blanc?
It's a combination of the great terroir. We think we have one of the best terroir you can find in Bordeaux. It was not exalted, not expressed at its best before, and it took us a long time to express it. And also the combination of, as I said, the slow ripening because of the north exposure, And we have been working with horses for the last 25 years. And we have a good reason, because it's a pronounced slope. You know, Lafitte means hill. That's why it stands for quality somewhere. And the horses are working a lot in our whites. Sometimes you will see them on our reds, because we have now 7 of them. So we need only 4 for the white. 4 for 11 hectares, it's already a lot. But they had babies and we keep them. And but for the white, they prevent the erosion, they prevent the compaction. And Julie is a little lady, very thin and sweet, and she drives 2 horses, sometimes 3 at a time, and she only by voice. And they work very well, very soft in their 11 hectares. They love it. And it's special. And also, Fabien, if you come to visit us on the eve of harvest, of picking, you will see our 2 enologists going on special sedgeway in the rows of vine, and they test, and they put small ribbons, little pink ribbons, not on the border of the parcels, but in the place that we studied for 2 years, sending electrical impulses in the terroir, and also having the drones and the satellites, crossing the information and deciding exactly where the ripening of the vegetation will be at its best to pick, you know. It's very, very precise.
And I believe that Smith Haut Lafitte was one of the very first estates to start using. Was it called EnoView? Was that the technology that was used?
Yes, but now we also embark technology on our tractors, on our light tractors that follow sometimes with the horses.
And your segues as well. We had, as we move on to the first of our reds, the Petit Haut Lafitte 15. We had a couple of questions in the chat there. Firstly, from Michael, always a good question with white wines. What is your suggested temperature for the Grand Vin? But we might as well do both wines. You know, how cold should we serve these or not?
It depends. If you want to see the flows, if there are any, you have to pour it pretty warm, 12 degrees. If you want it fresh, like I myself like, it's rather 9. For my husband, it's between 10 and 11. So you decide, because it depends on what you are looking for. It depends from your palate. It depends from what you eat with it. If it's for a cocktail, pour it very fresh, 8 to 9. If it's for food, let it maybe sometimes decant it. It's worth it. Yeah.
And a related question in terms of how one, or when, in this case, one might prefer to drink the wines. Nathan was just asking, what would be your suggested drinking windows for both of these wines? When should we drink them? Now and for how long?
As I said, excellent sooner and better later, but that's my joke. But what do you think, Ludovic?
Well, Petit is made with young vines, and the vinification in French oak from the winery, because we produce our own barrels here. We fermented 10 months on lees, where the Grand Vin is 12, 14 months in 50% new barrels. So in fact, you have enough concentration. So the breaking windows, I guess, for Petit is from now to 5 years, and the Grand Vin from now to 10 years, 20. and maybe later.
Your favorite is 1995.
Yeah, I have an English palate, so I like mature whites. But I must maybe say that the windows from 7 to 10, 12, where you have the combination of second aromas and still the freshness of the fruit, in fact, is a good cross between two worlds, and give you a nice palette of aromas. When you're getting older, the style, the profile change a little bit on more waxy, honey profile, minerals, kind of lime jam, grapefruit jam, that kind of profile. So that's very nice as well to pair with cheese, comté, gruyere, or as well roasted chicken. We did it last week. It was very great. Yeah.
And the content alcohol, I see one question for Smith Haut Lafitte is 13.5.
Phew, I got that right. I put that in the chat too. Excellent. So if we move on to the first of our reds,
Yes.
and perhaps as we do so, you might just briefly explain to people, you have not one but two second label wines, so it's not and that's that's unusual for chateaus. They might have a first, second, and potentially a third wine, but you have a first wine and then two second wines. So what's the reasoning behind that?
It's because our enologists are a little lazy. They love so much low yields that they are not able to make 70% of first wine. But that's what Ludovic and I, the two commercial, are telling to our husband, who is always on the side of the two enologists, Fabien and Yann, because they have a terrible thinking about cerebral thinking about the blendings. And they always, we have two light consultants. One is Michel Roland, the other is Stéphane de Renoncourt. And in fact, their difference are very low. They don't test together, but they test with 1 day difference, and they are very the same. And they would put always one vat more in first wine than the enologist and my husband decide. So we are frustrated, and we have a lot of second wine, so-called second wine. I don't like this name. Maybe young vines would be better, but they are not so young. They are 30 years average, so the younger vines. So we decide, in fact, to make the same blend, but 60% Cabernet for Petit Haut Lafitte, with 40% Merlot, and just the reverse for les Hauts de Smith, which is more for restaurant, where Le Petit is a long keeper, so you can take Le Petit better in individual cellars. And because it's majority Cabernet, the other is majority Merlot. And it's exactly the same terroir, one piece terroir, one block, as the Grand Vin.
Right. Yeah. When I mentioned to you earlier that there is two life in Smith Haut Lafitte, before 90 and after 90, it means that Florence and Daniel, when they come to the property, in fact, they have to change a lot of things in terms the vines, and it takes time. So in fact, the understanding they had at that time and the things they changed take 10, 15 years before to come back to the Grand Vin. So that's, and they are very strict, one of the highest restricted selection in the grapes. So that's why they split into 3 qualities, the Grand Vin and 2 young vines with different profile. So I think we are the highest sorting process.
But yesterday we were with a wine critic, and we put Le Petit blind with Smith Haut Lafitte blind, same vintage, and I can tell you, we just reveal the joke before he would be embarrassed.
Embarrassing.
Embarrassed because he was telling, oh, it's two Smith Haut Lafitte. So it was not. One was Le Petit, and Le Petit was slightly less sophisticated. But so that is in the great vintage. Le Petit, we think it's too near from the Grand Vin. Fortunately, the very sharp palates know their difference, and also Le Grand Vin can age much more.
And we are certainly now trying the 2015. We are dealing with a great vintage. In fact, we're tremendously lucky with the selection we have this evening. That these are all 5-star vintages. Certainly, well, they just are 5-star vintages. There's no denying it. I suppose 17 might be questioned as a 5-star vintage for reds, although I don't think so in your case, but certainly for whites, it was tremendous. But now we're moving on to the reds. You know, we have 15, 16, 10, and 5, four of the greatest vintages, frankly, in Bordeaux, full stop, not just in recent years. So I think it would be great to find out more about the 15 vintage specifically from you both. How was it? What was it as a vintage?
Well, 15 is it's a vintage that we all vignerons love, and it's very difficult to miss the quality on that kind of vintages, because it's what we call an armchair vintage, where we have everything that we need in the time that we need in perfect condition. We like the difference of temperatures during the day and the night, who makes at the end who helps to find the skin of the grapes, polish the tannins, making very elegant wines. It's a mixture of black fruit, softness, touch of the tannins that we really enjoy, and it's a really we call it a vin de lieu, vin de terroir, a wine from
sense of place.
Yeah.
And it was a double celebration because it was our 25th harvest of Daniel and I in the vineyard, and also the 650 year of the chateau. So we decided to make I draw a special label, and it happens that we totally underestimate the collector effect, and the wine Livex was very proud of us because it was a great speculative vintage for those we bought it in future on primeur. Yes, but we began to put very special silk paper in the flat 6 cases. And we like this presentation because we think now our wines deserve this kind of presentation, but it does not impair the excellence of the 15. Yeah. I must say I prefer the 15 over the 16, but if you ask my husband, he will say the reverse, because he thinks the 16 is more of a terroir, and that 15 is maybe too seducing, too charming.
Well, I think it's a good battle between 9 and 10, 15, 16. Today, 18, 19, maybe, or 19, 20. This decade, in fact, deserves so many great vintage, especially on the ripeness of the Cabernet Sauvignon. We saw some harvest which was very, very late. I remember 15, we were around October the 12th. You know, we went later again with some vintages where we end on the 24th of October. So it means that Indian summer as well, that you enjoy in Great Britain, and we have as well in Bordeaux, helps a lot in the full ripeness of Cabernet.
So I think it's very interesting, Florence, that you mentioned the difference between 15 and 16 and the seductiveness of the 15 vintage, because the 3 vintages of the Grand Vin that we have now, I mean, these are very serious vintages. These are vintages with great gravitas. Yes. I think the word cerebral has been used variously by critics. And do you think that these 3 vintages that we're going to try, the 16, 10, and 5, are all linked in that regard?
They have difference. They have difference in terms of profile and freshness and style that you enjoy. I guess the 15 has this kind of concentration of richness in the mid of the palate, which is belong
and it's instant gratification.
Instant gratification.
Seducing
totally correct,
all the palate at once.
Sure.
Whereas 16, as you said, it's a little more cerebral, but it's a great classic. I think if you have what we think is a classic English palate, you must prefer the 16. But if you are looking for instant charm and charisma, go to the 15.
Excellent.
I call the 16.
we're
The
on
five
the,
is, sorry.
no, I was saying we're on the 16 now, and I noticed that the blend in the wine really through all three of these vintages has remained, I mean, relatively the same, has it not? Certainly for the 10 and 16, there's very little difference. Is that because the wine is being made to a formula, or does it just seem to work each year in these proportions?
I think we nickname our enologist Fabien the witch of the tannins in the finish, you know, because that's where he is excellent, because he always with his blendings, on the other end is very light with the élevage. He does not over extract, never. He let Mother Nature do most of the time. And in the end, he has long and sweet finish with very intertwined and velvety tannins. And we think that's very interesting, because in the beginning, I remember in 1993, we were still trying to impress Mr. Parker, you know, trying to get a food bomb or a kind of blockbuster. And in 1995, we totally changed. But it was hard for us to master our oak, to master all the parameters of a great wine. But it took us maybe 10 years. But now we really got the recognition we were looking for, with an easy way and a sense of place, as you say, and as I like to repeat.
The other point as well is the Smith Haut Lafitte terroir is made with a lot of gravel. So in fact, the kingdom of the gravel, Cabernet Sauvignon is a kingdom of gravel. So it follows as well the vines which is planted in the property, and we have mostly so Cabernet Sauvignon, a little bit of Merlot. Usual blend is about 60% Cabernet Sauvignon, 30 Merlot, something like 6-8% Cabernet Franc, and the rest with Petit Verdot. And then you can move from 55 Cab to 65 Cab, and 25 to 30, 35 Merlot, not as much.
And we managed to surround our estate with 8 kilometers of edges. We kept 8 hectares that we could plant, because we are origin control appellation, but we keep them in forest. We have 10 beehives. We plant our we grow our own plants in the meadows of the forest. And now you have to visit this. It's interesting. I think we are alone in Bordeaux, maybe in France, to do that, because we dry the plants, we mold them, and then we have these huge herbal teapots, and then the horses, sometimes the light tractors go and put them in mist on the vines, and we know some plants which really work against fungus, or to strengthen the inner strength of our leaves, and it's important. We try everything. We have tried the straw in order that the mildew does not go against the end of our leaves. But the straw has a big flow. It keeps the frost in winter. So we dropped it. We have the sun booster effect with laser in some hectares, and this works. It thickens the leaves, and it works. We have tried also the plant which is eating the copper, and we go on with this. We have tried the algua. We go on with this. You know, you cannot tell any experiment that we don't go. That's why our philosophy is bio-precision, organic, but also the best of new technology.
No, It's really fascinating because I've spoken to a few winemakers and estate owners in Bordeaux over the years, well, a lot of them, and it's always it's how do you keep getting better? You never rest on your laurels. You never say, yep, we've made as good at the wine is never going to get better than this. We're just going to sit back and do the same thing forever. And I think the analogy I found fascinating was the idea of it's being like an engineer on a Formula One racing car. You incrementally do little things and you try this and you try that, and each year you just get a little bit faster and a little bit sleeker. And I think that seems to be the process with conscientious producers like yourselves in Bordeaux, where you just keep trying new things just to get a little bit better every year. It's fascinating.
We like competition. I met my husband in the French national ski team, and we have no enemies, just very good stimulating colleagues. And we don't want to fight or beat them. We want just to be different and have a new angle sometimes. And it works.
Yeah, and you understood that I have two passionate owners, and so they are 200% involved on the property because they work day and night and they're living on the property. And so Fabien is just
the other side of the estate.
Yeah.
That's why we managed to keep half of the crop, even in very difficult years, instead of sometimes 1/3 for the real organic people like us, because they are far away. We worked on Sunday, we work on, and we have many vacation in France, but we also work. And our master of the vines, he has an English wife, and he used to have a restaurant in England. He was not in London. He was not a great manager. So after his failure, he came here, and 10 years ago, he was making harvest, picking in our vines. And now he's the head of the team, and he has an agronomical engineer, a young one, just under him. So they are a great tandem, a great team, and it works. Yes.
Well, it's very sensible to have such a lovely hotel, spa, and number of restaurants on the property. It means you never have to leave, so you're always going to be there to do things in the vineyard. It's very clever. Never leave. Yeah.
They have a huge impact now because for 1 year, because it belongs to our son-in-law and daughter. The two old ones, my husband and I, we are only focused on the vineyard, trying to make the best wine and best red in the world. Why not? Every morning. And the younger couple, they are deeply impacted, of course, by COVID, because you cannot open a 5-star palace of the vines when your restaurant is closed and when nobody can take the train. They are trying to open on 1st of April. They have some reservations, some bookings. I hope it works for them because they need it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Fingers crossed. Well, I was meant to be visiting you twice last year, and I'm still hoping to come out with a group of clients in June.
For you.
June, fingers crossed. So
yeah.
it's always we'll certainly share the details of Les Sources du Caudelie as well to all of our attendees this evening. If you haven't been, I mean, it's an unmissable stop on any Bordeaux trip for me. I can see lots of heads nodding, so clearly it is familiar to some, but it's a fantastic package, frankly. You get an amazing vineyard tour, you try some incredible wines, you eat and drink brilliantly, and you're about 20 minutes from the airport as well, so you can disappear off very quickly.
Yes, it's a welcome of a private home with the service of a palace and with a lot of experiences to share. And it's not the least to share a glass with us in our private charters or in our tasting room, because everything is connected. Even if we work as a couple in my family, we have the old couple and the 2 young couples. The Caudelie lady, which makes 20 times our turnover, our daughter with Caudelie, she has, I think she's trying to go to England to boost her shops and creams, and the younger hotel owners, and everybody is working hard, and we are very different because each has its own small kingdom, but we like also to share the experience for our clients.
and it works extremely well together. Now, I think everyone's had a chance for the 2010 to air a little bit. So this is a fabulous vintage. I mean, the 2009 was a very tough act to follow, given its success commercially, critically, and the way it was received by all who tasted it. I remember falling in love with it on primeur. So, 2010, how would you say it differs in style from the 16, and where is it similar? And what is the drinking trajectory for this vintage? Where is it going to go?
10 has a kind of similarity with 16. But if I have to compare the 10, I would prefer to compare with the 9 because they are very close altogether. For example, I took my notes, and the summer, the sum of temperatures in summer in 2009 was 962 degrees total, and in 10 it was 982. Just to give you an example, in 2005 it was 1052. So we are close to 9 in kind of sum of temperatures,
but not in the glass.
But not in the glass, where the 10 bring this classic freshness that we really enjoy, more Bordeaux profile with the freshness and
it's more like the 16, in fact.
It's more looks like the 16, yeah, exactly.
But it's older and perfect to drink now. It's our favorite. Yes, every time we have a very good taster, we open a 10. And sometime a 9 if he's American. If he's English, I shall go for the 10, but I shall decant it longer.
Yeah. It's certainly, it's certainly a fascinating pair to try, the 9 and the 10 next to each other, like the 15 and 16. I'm as intrigued by the similarities, Ludovic, with the 9 and the 10 as I am with the differences, because I personally have always seen them as being theoretically quite different, and in glass. But both fascinating.
Yeah.
So we really don't understand, because if you look at the diary of the harvest, it's pretty much the same. So, and they are totally different.
We are in a living environment, so every year everything is different, and so we have to adjust ourselves to face to the weather condition we can get. We end the harvest, which was a late harvest as well on the 10. And then it was one of the latest on October 22nd.
I saw a question about is 6 the 10? No, is 6 the 9 and 5 the 10 look like? I think 5 look like the 10 for me, and 6 does not look like the 9. No. That would be my answer, because 9 is overwhelming with charisma and chocolate, black fruit in mouth. Whereas 6 is more restrained. It's a beautiful wine, but maybe more elegant, but not instant gratification like the 9. And
maybe the 6 was ready earlier to drink than the 5.
Oh yes. Yeah. The 6 was earlier to drink, easy to drink than the 5. The 5 is more like the 10, really. The 5 is excellent. I prefer the 10 because, very often the winemakers and the owners, they like the newest babies, and 10 is newest than the 5. And we have no more 5. I have to look in my private cellar to find 1 or 2 usually big bottles. You have some big bottles, but no more bottles.
Well, Florence, I have 2 magnums of the 05 here for me, in fact. So I'll bring one. I'll bring one next time I visit. We can try that. But
no, we still have some magnums. We
1 or 2. Sure.
In fact, Florence, we have a nice story about the 2005, because, and a very frustrating one for me. Maybe you can because I wasn't at the property in 2005 when you get the tasting en primeur and then the 10 years later.
Oh, that's funny because it was, you know, in 5, we thought we had make a very great wine. And if you remember at the time, Mr. Parker was still the big guru in wine. And I got a 98 and I was not happy. I say, we deserve better. And well, and some people I thought had less success than us, got 99, even 100. It was a future testing, you know, it was 95, 98. And then 10 years later, and it was one of his very last testing, because it was in 15, he tested the 2005, and then no, I got a 95, excuse me.
You,
it was
in
95.
bottle, in bottle, you get 95 points. So
no, in bottle, I got 98.5.
okay.
But in the future, I got 95. And so I got 3.5 points more. And I was happy because I had made, I have many sculpture in my estate, and big sculpture. And I had made a crumpled paper in bronze by a quite famous artist, and who loved my wine. And it's to show that the things which you are focusing on one day are in the dustbin the following morning. And so it was a page of Wine Advocate. But now after having got a very good notation, I say it's a tribute. Before it was just a dust paper. But you have to come and visit this private joke.
Brilliant. No, that's brilliant. Well, I suppose it just, you know, teaches us all a lesson that you know, unquestionably, critics' appreciation and critics' scores are very, you know, they're useful and they're nice, but at the same time, you know, they will never supplant your own personal taste and your own opinion about the wines.
Exactly.
And that's very important. And we say that to all of our clients and all of our club members.
Right. You're totally right.
Yeah.
Totally right. And we are very pleased that now no one has a huge influence that Parker used to get, not so much in England, but maybe everywhere else in the world. Now you have wine critics, we respect them, but it's not the same, and it's much better because they have different palettes, and you have different palettes, and we have different palettes, and you have to trust your own taste, which is, and get pleasure with the wines. But the selection you took today, I think
it's one of the greatest.
It's one of the greatest.
It's not bad at all. Very good. Very good. Happy to taste it again. Yes.
Yeah.
Of course.
You cannot.
We're delighted to provide the excuse to do so. So thank you.
You have to come and visit, because it's really worth it. We think our estate is improving each year. This year we have made, as I said, the big tisanerie, the big herbal tea process. We have also made a mielerie to make our own honey, not a honey we buy to somebody, just a honey made by a guy who works in the vineyard and who get passionate about this. And now we have installed the wool farm for the bees, and you have to come and visit. And also you can even have a lunch on a special platform above the vineyard. It's in what we call the Landart project, and where you walk and you can eat very good things, like kind of sophisticated picnic. It's fun. And at the same time, you can go and ask the wine, the master of the vines and the master seller, because they all are as passionate as Ludovic and I, and they can speak a lot, and maybe in a more technical and precise way than us.
Well, I think you convey of course your passion and commitment to the project admirably, but also, you know, the wines definitely speak for themselves, and I think it's very interesting and very telling that, as you were suggesting earlier, we are no longer at the whim of one man's palate. And yet what's interesting is that internationally, you know, your wines are clearly very well received, whether it's critics and wine lovers from the Far East, from the US, from the UK, from continental Europe. You know, I think that's the key thing, is there is no, you're not making wine for a specific market or a specific palate. The wine you make universally appeals, and that's why, frankly, it's very easy to sell and very easy to enjoy. So
yes, but the UK were not the first to love us, because they had in mind the old Smith Haut Lafitte wines by Eschnauer. You know, they sold for £3 a bottle, but they were not worth more than this, because it was quantity against quality, and it's a long way to regain your trust. But we did this, and we are very pleased. I love England. I was a French lecturess in the University of St Andrews in Scotland in my very younger time, and I really enjoyed my year over there. Even if my accent is still very poor, because I don't get great ears.
well,
I have a good taste, but not my ears.
You haven't picked much of the St Andrews accent up. I was at Edinburgh across
No, because I
haven't picked up much of that either.
The Scotch accent is very difficult. Even if George Smith, you know, Smith Haut Lafitte was half Scotch and half English, because his wife was Scottish. But he was a well-organized guy, this George Smith. He had his wife in Perth, Scotland. He built the chartreuse where I live now for his Bordeaux mistress, and he had his business in Bristol. He was very clever.
He compartmentalized everything.
Yeah.
They're very smart man indeed.
It was maybe easier in the 18th century. We don't know.
Less social media, but we had we had a question from Richard, which I didn't want to get lost in the chat, which I just wanted to return to. Was the question here was, or the request was, could you talk a little bit more about the gravel soils and the terroir of Smith Haut Lafitte compared to the crus in the Medoc? And he focuses on the wines are wonderfully concentrated with bright fruit. Is this a result of the soil specifically, do you think?
Well, it's a result of many things. First of all, the terroir, of course, is related to the concentration. It's as well related to the rootstock that we are producing on the winery.
But also because we produce our Chion from the nursery of rootstock we have on our own private island on the Garonne River, because we want to master our clones, and so it's selection massal selection from our own clones. It took us years and years, because it's very long to do this, and now we are only left with the Merlot. All the white has been made, the Cabernet has been made, but it took us more than 20 years to do this. And we are very pleased, because we hope someday to have the full vineyard with our own clones. And it's a long process of selection. And the island is great help, because it's a place without viruses. So we try to integrate everything. Fortunately, I had my husband forget his idea of having oaks to make the corks, you know. I think Portugal are better than you, Daniel, whatever. But
you have to admire the ambition. You have to admire the ambition, though. But you know, yeah.
Terroir, you know, if you come here, I will show you my special tricks with flintstone. We have plenty of this in the soil, and when I rub them, you have the same smell that you get after maybe 10 years in the great terroir of the Gunsian gravel in Aubryon, Mission, and some other vineyards, and us. Not that many, maybe 5 or 6. And it's very special. It's the great Graves terroir. Yeah. And my husband makes fun of me, telling me that he does not think the little Flintstones are rubbing up their shoulders at night. But I am helped with a professor of geology, and he says that we have so many that they make electrical bows in the soil, and
Wow.
that gives a special touch. And for the rest, I should say it's still 40 to 50% the team. We have an excellent team. We are very proud of our team because Fabien has been here since 25 years, 25 harvests now, and he came here as a young, full of diploma, but with little experiment. Ludovic, it's more than 10 years now. He's getting some white hair. And as I told you, the master of the vineyard is a French, half English, and he loves his job because he's a self-made man, full of nature. And we think also we are very consistent in the family. Our daughter was first to suppress paraben in her creams, the Caudalie girl. The hotel lady, Alice, has a huge organic vegetable garden, and a 2-star Michelin chef is taking almost all his vegetables inside this. And we practice, of course, sorting of all our dust. I have never wear a fur coat. We have llamas, and the llamas are helping us in our vineyard to eat the cover crop.
Okay.
Yeah,
we have Jan as well in the cellar. We use a special kind of extraction. We work a lot on these high definition tannins by pumping over pigeage away, which is softer in terms of
yes.
extraction. A lot on the final of the taste as well. Using natural yeast as well during the fermentation.
Yes.
It's something that we do from a long time. A couple of different things who at the end makes a big change. Huh? Yeah.
Like Jean-Claude Kelly, our great friend, and we won 3 Olympics medal in ski, you know, told us it's the addition of small things every day, improving yourself every day a little bit, and in the end, it's a lot of difference.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I translate well, but
no. I think that makes an awful lot of sense. And if our guests this evening hadn't or weren't aware before now, I hope you come away from this evening realizing, you know, the incredible commitment and attention to every single detail. Who knew about the you know, the little Flintstones with the electrical sparks in between them at night? This is I'm learning tonight, Florence, so thank you. Just conscious of the time, I could certainly stay here all evening, and I know a number of our guests will as well. There are some who need to leave us. However, before we were joined by everyone else, we were talking a little bit about the 2020 vintage. So perhaps you could just finish the official part of this evening, at least, telling us what have we got to look forward to with the 2020 vintage coming up?
Well, 2020 is something very different in the history of Smith Haut Lafitte. I think it's UFO wines because UFO. Sorry. It's the third earliest harvest. It was a vintage which went through a little gap because the beginning was quite difficult with a lot of hydric, a lot of rain, a lot of mildew risk, in fact, and we succeed to maintain this mildew, and then a very dry summer. But
we had a beautiful flowering,
bird break. We have windows. 1 week before the flowering, it was a disaster, a lot of rain, and then the flowering, we have an ocean of blue sky during 10 days, where the flowering was very in a very healthy conditions, and then we get another rain, and then a very dry summer, but full of reserve of water.
Chamomile and also valerian, we quiet the stress of the vines, And if we have to sum up this vintage in 4 words, as I said, it's surprises, challenges, fights, and victory in the end. And maybe it's the best of the trilogy with great 18, great 19, and maybe greater 2020. Wow. We are full of expectation, and all the negociants and the wine critics who come and test in the barrel, not the final blending, but they really are astounded. Really.
People can think that this warm summer that everyone gets in Europe might be too high, too warm for the vines, but it's totally not. Yeah. The concentration is there, but the energy behind the fruit is absolutely gorgeous. So we have a combination, a balance.
Especially the Cabernet.
The Cabernet brings a great
Cabernet this year, they are incredible.
Yeah, that's why it's UFO wines for me, because we have this power, this concentration, and this freshness. It's something very very amazing. But in the other part, the production is very very limited this year.
Yes, less 25%.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you so much, both of you. Florence, Ludovic, it's been an absolute delight this evening. It really has. We really appreciate your time. We appreciate your insight. We appreciate your candor as well. I think, Bordeaux can be, I won't say stuffy, but can be quite closed. And I think it makes a huge difference to really have you effectively in our studies, in our front rooms, in our lounges, presenting these wines and really giving us a proper insight into the truth behind Bordeaux and the success which continues to make Smith Haut Lafitte one of the most exciting properties to visit. I can certainly highly recommend it. It's a tremendous shame that a year has now gone by without me visiting, but hopefully that will not be the case. Yeah.
Please come and visit us for real.
Yeah,
even,
we have.
Even if we enjoy this Zoom very much.
Yeah.
You know very very well. Thank you.
So we believe that now you are becoming our best ambassador.
Merci.
Well,
thank you very much.
We're very much honored to be part of it. So thank you so much, Florence. It's been a real pleasure. We look forward to seeing you again. And thank you to all our attendees as well for joining us. I'm sure you've learned a lot and drunk some fabulous wines. And we look forward to seeing you all again for some more tastings very soon. So thank you very much indeed.
Merci beaucoup.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers.
Be well. Take care. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.